Excellent. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our virtual event as well as a live one, which we have. Thank you very much for making the time in this hot weather condition to come and see us. We really appreciate your time and effort. Um, I just want to basically introduce myself, Sam Hussein. I'm the managing director for BLS Global. We specialize in residency and citizenship investment immigration programs. We host many uh, award winning events internationally, and today we're delighted to be here in Pakistan, in Karachi. We are very privileged to have a number of industry experts that actually made the time and effort to be here on a Sunday. You know, they're coming from Canada, New York, and various different time zones as well as London. Um, just to give you an example, BLS Global, we choose a number of locations and jurisdictions to host many live events as well as virtual events where there's a big appetite. We know there's been a huge amount of appetite from the Pakistan region, and it's very important that the inquiries that you make, you get the right information and you are aware of the latest updates. And with that in mind, we obviously have a wonderful set of panelists here, but I don't want to take the limelight away from them. And I think it's very important that Iram here, who's going to be coordinating with me as a moderator, also Pakistani, be speaking to you in Urdu to really explain to you the latest developments. Without further ado, Iram, I'll pass on the platform to you. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम पाकिस्तान and Karachiites. कैसे हैं आप लोग? I hope all of you are well. I'm here as a moderator, speaking to you from New York, and I'll be introducing and moderating two great legends and veterans of immigration world. सबसे पहले मैं आपका तारुफ कराना चाहूँगी मोना शाह से. मोना शाह ओरिजिनली ब्रिटिश और पिछले 25-30 साल से न्यूयॉर्क में रहती हैं. मोना के पास बोथ ब्रिटिश और अमेरिकन लाइसेंसेस और लीगल लॉ बार है. At the same time, Mona is one of the leading lawyers of EB5 immigration, based in New York. She has offices in London, Dubai, and soon coming into Pakistan. She's also a published author. She has great depth and knowledge in EB5 and other areas of immigration. Mona is also one of the award winners of EB5 experts. तो आज आपके साथ मौजूद हैं और आप जो सवाल करना चाहें, she'll be happy to answer. इसके साथ हमारे पास आज हमारे साथ मिस्टर सैम बायथ हैं, जिन्होंने इमिग्रेशन वर्ल्ड में 1993 में कदम रखा. हम बहुत आराम से सैम शाह को वन ऑफ द पायनियर्स कह सकते हैं, क्योंकि इनकी डेप्थ ऑफ नॉलेज spans over 20-30 years along with multiple countries. Currently Sam based हैं मॉन्ट्रियल कनाडा में, but इनके ऑफिसेस दुबई में भी हैं और ये पाकिस्तान भी आते हैं, और इनको एक्सेस बेशुमार ममालिक का है, नॉलेज ममालिक का है, गवर्नमेंट्स को है. ये मशवरा देते हैं गवर्नमेंट्स को इन फाइनलाइजिंग द प्रोग्राम्स, डेवलपमेंट ऑफ वेरियस इमिग्रेशन प्रोग्राम्स, जो आप सैम से पूछ सकते हैं. और सबसे की बात जो मैं कहना चाहूँगी इससे पहले कि हम मोना और सैम से बात करें, वो ये कि बोथ ऑफ देम आर लॉयर्स, which is one of the key difference on an international platform. So let's begin our conversation and our seminar. One of the key questions जो मैं पूछना चाहूँगी, Mona, Sam, welcome to the seminar.
Thank you, Iram.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Our pleasure today.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes.
Let's begin with the fact that immigration has been happening for decades. However, there has been a shift in the last 10 to 15 years. Would you like to give your views? What that shift has been? What has changed? What's important?
Well,
So,
thank you. Thank you, Irma. I think that's a very important question, and one where it really involves a little bit more understanding, especially from people like ourselves who are immigrants. Well, I was the first generation in the UK. My parents were immigrants who came in the 60s. Now, in the 60s, there was a very different attitude, 60s, 70s, 80s, to what you see today. I think today, and I know, Sam, you say the same thing, you see the same thing. People don't necessarily want to migrate to the UK, the US, and Canada in the same way they used to. They perhaps want to come for short periods of time, maybe to get certain education, maybe, for example, to get become a doctor or maybe an MBA or an engineer, or they just want to do business in the US or they want to do business in Europe. So they're looking more, what we are seeing, for freedom of movement as opposed to just settling.
Well, to further comment on what you were saying, I think besides that, the whole industry has also changed. Well, we went to Canada in the early 70s,
Mm.
and I'm in Dubai since '93 practicing immigration. So, what I have seen from the angle of the programs is the fact that uh, originally or initially in those years, there was a lot of skilled immigrations, a lot of business people migrating, entrepreneurs going to start a business, and some investors, of course. Uh, but the bulk of people had to go and stay in order to acquire a citizenship. What we have seen is a shift, I would say, since late 2000, that started with St. Kitts and Nevis, is the citizenship by investment program, where people now can, without moving or without going to that country, acquire a new citizenship, a second or third citizenship or fourth, and then have different passports in their hands to travel. And of course, the world has changed too.
Yeah,
In the 70s, no one was really required to travel to see someone on a whim. But today, in 2024, a lot of people want to see you, and it's very easy to arrange a meeting. So, should you travel quickly somewhere? Would you have the visas? Of course, it was easier in those days, also 15, 20 years ago, to go to the embassy, to talk to an immigration officer, to present your case that you need to travel urgently. You could get a visa quickly. But today, look, some countries, it's a year, 2 year waiting just to get a time
right,
to be interviewed, or
right.
for them to assess your visa. Uh,
yeah.
are they going to grant it or not? So, therefore, the need of acquiring citizenship or residencies, which is called commonly by investment, which I call them passive type of application. We don't have to do anything. So yes, the attitude of people have changed, as Mona said, but also the type of applications uh, allowing you to get quicker, faster what you want, what you need.
I think there's also a little bit more pride in your home country now. The brain drain, which previously happened, has lessened somewhat. And the other thing that I think that people are more in tune with is, for example, aging parents. Our parents left their parents, and it was a little different. Today, you don't want to do that, and so many programs don't allow parents. I think there's only one or two programs allow your mother-in-law for you to emigrate with you, Sam. Right?
Yes, well, the Caribbean programs, the citizenship by investment programs in the Caribbean, they have actually, they're very much in tune and in line with the realities, where they allow the applicant, like any other program, to include their spouse,
Mm.
eligible children. But the Caribbean, where they have innovated it, that they have increased the age of eligible children to up to 28 in some programs. They've allowed you to include some of your unmarried siblings, brothers and children, brothers and sisters, sorry, and of course your parents, the applicant's parents, and their spouse's parents. So this becomes a multi-generational planning, which is
That's
great.
big
It doesn't
advantage.
exist in the migration program, Western migration programs.
No, it's a huge advantage. If you want everybody to get the same passport, there's only that program which has that. In the US, the program only allows a spouse, and that's one spouse, and all children under 21. So if the minute your child hits 22, they don't get included.
Yeah, well, in Canada is children up to 22, and in UK, you the better expert is 18, I think.
Yes, but there are other issues. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is very interesting that different pockets have different strengths available for immigrants. Um, हम जो भी कहें बहुत से ममालिक हैं जो इमिग्रेशन प्रोवाइड अप करते हैं एंड एज सैम यू सेड पैसिव इमिग्रेशन जहां आपको रहना भी नहीं पड़ता और आपको पासपोर्ट मिल जाता है उसके बावजूद कुछ ममालिक ऐसे हैं जिनकी इमिग्रेशन इज़ वेरी सॉट आफ्टर इफ आई मे से एंड उनमें यूएस यूके कनाडा स्पीकिंग वेरी ब्रॉडली लोग माइग्रेट करना चाहते हैं एक एंगल ये और दूसरा वहाँ बिजनेस करना चाहते हैं जो ऑलरेडी बिजनेस उनकी पाकिस्तान में है या और मुल्कों में है वो अब एक ऑफिस फॉर एग्जांपल यूएस में भी खोलना चाहते हैं सो मोना वुड यू लाइक टू शेयर योर नॉलेज अबाउट द पॉसिबल वीजाज whether one wants to migrate or just wants to do business. US में क्या opportunities हैं? What are the ways to do it? What are the options available?
Well, Ilham, that's a very wide question, which I don't think we have time to discuss all of that right now.
Yeah.
But super briefly, there are two paths to really coming to the US. One is an immigrant path, and one is non-immigrant. And within the immigrant path, there's the family division, which one of your family members sponsors you, and the other path, which is what we call the EB, employment-based path. And that has 5 tentacles. The first tentacle is your alien of extraordinary ability or senior manager. And remember, these are immigrant paths, giving you green cards and leading you to citizenship. The second, which is the most popular for South Asians, is the EB2, which is skilled worker. For that, though, you need a job and you need a sponsor. And the third one is unskilled worker. That one would be, for example, an example of that would be maybe a chef in a restaurant. The fourth is a special worker, which would include religious people, battered spouses. And the fifth, which we specialize in, is the entrepreneur investment visa. Now, for the investment visa, there are 2 types. You can go through a regional center and have a project and be a passive investor in a pooled project, or you can do your own. And from our experience, a lot of people from Pakistan now who come, they are of the entrepreneur category. Some of them prefer to go into a pooled, even though they are an entrepreneur, because they don't want to be bothered with the issues relating to immigration. So they prefer to go into a regional center project. Others want to start their own business. Starting your own business can be fraught with issues. It's like that anywhere. If I wanted to open a coffee shop in Karachi, I wouldn't have the first idea where to go or which vendors I would use. So those kind of small things takes time to understand, and it takes time when you go and live in a country and you understand these things. On the other side, we have what's called the non-immigrant visas. I'm not going to go into that in depth. We'll mention perhaps, Sam, we can mention E2, which has become so popular. It used to be very popular.
Well, it's popular just for in our region, in the Middle
Right.
East. It's only for the Pakistanis because the Indians don't qualify, the Iranians don't qualify anymore. And
They
the people
used
from the
to for many
They
years.
used to, yes, but they don't. Donald Trump,
Well, can you
President Trump canceled that.
I can tell you that the Indians get very upset that Pakistan has it and India doesn't have it.
Yeah, this is a very important point. कि E2 visa जो entrepreneurship visa है, Pakistan is in the treaty with the US.
Yeah, it's a treaty visa. And the treaties came from different reasons. For example, in the UK, the treaty was back in the 1860s. But in Pakistan, it came in the 70s. And at the time that Pakistan came, Bangladesh was part of Pakistan, which is why Bangladesh also is a E2 country. So and they only got it because of Pakistan. And at that time, they did not want India to have it. India was moving towards communism, and they were not, or more towards China at that point. So they didn't like that idea, and that's why India does not have it. They really are trying to get it today, but so far they haven't.
Yeah. So
Well, it's
this
a
is,
great way to get a non-immigrant visa because as you purchase a business, you start a business.
Yeah.
Now there you go, you have it. And if you stay less than 4 months, of course you will not be considered a tax resident as well. So it has
great.
great possibilities.
Yes, Sam, there's been talk of people getting Caribbean passports and stuff just to get the E2 visa, and of course only Grenada had that. Of course, Pakistan doesn't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Caribbean Grenada sold one of the main reasons they were selling their
Mhm.
citizenship program or promoting their citizenship program was the fact that Grenada had the E2 visa option. But then the Americans changed it, and now if you have a second nationality, you must show that you are actively, effectively living in that area, which Pakistanis won't have a problem because they're Pakistanis and they live in Pakistan. But if anyone acquires a Pakistani citizenship, a new person, that person must show they're effectively living in Pakistan for 3 years before, because Turkey also has this E2
It's
treaty with the
just
US
residency, Sam. Not you don't actually have to show active living. Just we have to show residency.
presidency.
Yeah, yeah.
But coming back to your first question, Abraham, I divide the world in three type of application or industry: the citizenship by investment, which is a passive;
Mm.
residency by investment, mostly the European visas, which is also passive; and also the active engaging. That's the migration,
Mm.
and that's Canada, U.S., U.K., Australia, New Zealand. Where when we mention migration, I say active because once you have the visa, once you get that immigrant visa, the green card, the permanent residency, you need to actually move. You can't basically go back and forth. You're gonna lose it if you don't spend enough times or if you don't have enough ties to the country.
That's right. That's right. And tell me one thing, Sam. Are they getting very, very strict about actually checking, doing the due diligence on the investors right now?
Oh yes, yes. And I think well, there's always been a very big emphasis on the net worth and the
Mm.
source of funds. For example, I remember my first cases in the U.S. They used to just ask where does the fund come from, and now they actually go and say how was the initial investment done. I mean,
Mm.
that's the big part of your EB-5 applications, the source
Oh,
of fund and the legalities of it.
sorry, I'm interrupting, Sam, but there's an important question I would like if you can answer. For both EB5 and E2, while people are in the US on visit visa, can that be converted?
Converted into what?
EB5, can they file EB5 while they're visiting, or and can
Yes.
they file for
Yes. Yes, they can file. They can file for both while they're visiting. However, if they come in on a B1, B2, these are basically non-immigrant intent visas, meaning that as you enter the United States, you are basically promising that you will return, and then to file a visa which allows you to stay can be problematic. So the way around that is to wait 90 days and then file for the adjustment. For the actual application, you could file for an EB5, but with the adjustments section of it, you actually have to wait 90 days. Oh, it's advised to wait 90 days.
Okay. And another question on EB5 before we move on, something that Sam mentioned, source of funds. Um, ये एक बहुत अहम इम्पोर्टेंट एरिया है EB5 का. Can you briefly tell us about it?
Well, yes, I think most people understand that we have to show where your capital has come from. Now, the difference is with EB5 and with Canada, and Sam, please correct me, is that you don't have to show your entire net worth value, only the amount you're investing. So for EB5, if you are investing 800,000, we have to show where that full 800,000 has come from, and it leads back. So, for example, if you're showing it comes from a business, we also have to show what the seeds funds of that money was that established that business. And because of the difficulties a lot of people in this region do have with showing source of funds, we can use loans, we can use gifts, as long as we show the source from the loan and the gift. And the loan can come from anywhere. It can come from the United States, it can come from Europe, it can come from Pakistan, it can come, as long as we can show the source.
Well, from a Canadian perspective, they want to know what are your total net worth, not
Yeah,
just the
that's
sum
different.
that's coming
Yeah.
in. So you got to go make a list of all your assets, tangible, intangible, your passive, your active assets, and then you got to go start from the beginning. How did it start? It, so from the first cent you started saving. So and they don't care. The story goes 5 year, 10 year, 20 year, 30
Yeah.
years, 40 years. You got to have proof that 30 years ago how you were able to make that much money in order to accumulate your net worth. In the Caribbean program, they're not as stringent on that, but they're getting a little more serious where they want to know what is your total net worth, and they will ask questions if they think it's a bit the story doesn't hold itself a bit.
Can we use loans for the Caribbean the way we can for EP5?
No, you have to show that it's your money that's
Okay,
being invested to actually,
that's
and that
interesting.
actually, this is actually behind the whole story.
Mhm.
That all the Caribbean changed their pricing because there was a lot of discounting, there was a lot of financing. No, they want to make sure the actual amount is getting into the islands, is being invested in the local economies. So therefore, if you are taking a loan to apply for the passport, that won't go.
I
That
see.
won't work.
That's very, very
Someone could be paying on your behalf. You could have a
Hmm.
sponsor, and this happens quite often. Where a third person would come and say, "Well, I'll pay." Therefore, that person also needs to undergo the due diligence process.
So there's a big difference because you can take a bank loan, for example, for EB5.
But that makes it much easier.
Yeah.
yeah.
But the
So
only problem with EB5 is that you only have 10,000 visas.
Yes, that
You
is a
need
big problem.
you need much more.
But it's not a problem for Pakistan. It's a problem. It's a big problem for China and it's a big problem for India. But it's not a problem for Pakistan. There's no backlog in Pakistan and there's no likelihood to be a backlog, which means that if you apply, you immediately get a visa, no wait period.
My biggest problem with most people not truly understanding the difference between E2 and EB5 in terms of type of visa, because many people go in with an E2 and they wait years before they can find an opportunity to change that temporary residency to the permanent or green card. That's why it's not unheard when you speak with someone in the US when they just tell you, "Oh, I just obtained my citizenship," and then you tell them, "Well, wait a minute, you've been living here for 15 years." That's where they tell you, "Well, the first 10 years I was trying to convert or get an a green card, and in the last 5 years I fulfilled the requirements for citizenship. That's why it took me 15 years." You
Well,
know,
E2
uh,
doesn't automatically convert to a green card. That's the difference.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it takes years. So if someone chooses the B5, they get in with a green card, and then they can start counting the 5 years. Same as in Canada, when you get in with your permanent residency, you can count the days till your citizenship application, 3 years.
Well, I think that this issue about getting a passport quickly is something which is prevalent throughout the Western programs because there isn't an option for a fast passport. The only place you can get a fast passport are which countries? What?
All the CBS. Well, I prepared a little graph. It's Shinyas, if you can maybe put the graph number 8, 9, I think. Yeah, 8. They can see that there are currently, of course, the Caribbean programs, the five, but on top of that, there's Egypt, there's Jordan, Malta, Vanuatu, and Turkey, where you can actually quickly get your citizenship around 6 months, sometime a little faster. St. Kitts has an expedited application fee. Thank you, seniors. And this allows people to get the citizenship and of course a passport faster. One more thing also, a myth is people think they can only have two citizenship. No, you can have multiple citizenship. I have a client who have acquired 8 citizenship as of today. So these citizenship by investment programs are passive. You fulfill the requirement. You give your identity information, your background, your source of funds. They conduct a due diligence on you, and if everything's okay, if you are of good character, you get the citizenship and the passport.
Sam, this is a good opportunity. Can you speak about the difference in citizenship by investment and residency by investment?
Well, the terms are very clear. Citizenship, well, first of all, both programs are passive, whereby making an investment either in a definitive identified project or you make a donation to the government, you acquire the citizenship in the citizenship program. In the residency, well, you acquire the residency. The Caribbean programs are quite well known in the market to as far as the citizenship, and it's a great citizenship because that can give you tremendous access. We go above 140 countries and they're really on the scales of countries. Well, about 192 countries. They're all in the 40th, 50th ranks compared to Pakistan, which is almost at the bottom of the 192 countries in terms of access. So it really gives you big push to be able to travel freely everywhere: UK, Schengen zone, Far East, Hong Kong, Singapore, and this is good. The residency is, as it suggests, is primarily in the Schengen area zone countries: Portugal, Spain, Greece, Malta, where you can Romania, Hungary soon. They have a program coming with that. By making that investment or contribution, you get a residency, and now you are a resident of the Schengen zone, and therefore you can travel freely. There are other countries that have this citizenship, the residency by investment, like in Thailand. There are programs to facilitate your living there by investing. So the big difference is the fact that one is citizenship and passport, of course, and the other one is just residency. But both program gives you access.
And it allows you to work and do business.
Both
Oh,
allow.
definitively. Yes, because once you, for example, you are a resident of Spain, well, you can, you're living there, you can work as well. But Spain is, they're intending to cancel their golden visa program.
Yeah.
I
Well,
see.
that's the advantage as coming in on an E2, because you may not want to live in the US. And if you want to start quickly or with less money, the E2 really works well in that respect. But if you are looking for just passport or sort of freedom of movement, then these other programs certainly are really what you want. Which goes back to your question, Iram. People have different needs today. That's why
Yes.
there are different products.
Yes. So I think if we try to wrap up and go towards question and answers,
Yeah.
um, आई थिंक आज के टाइम पे ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि आप अपनी नीड्स समझें। आपकी नीड क्या है? सिर्फ एक पासपोर्ट चाहिए ताकि आप ट्रैवल कर सकें, या आप माइग्रेट करना चाह रहे हैं फॉर चेंज इन लाइफस्टाइल, यूएस में, यूके में, ऑस्ट्रेलिया में जाके रहना चाह रहे हैं, या आप बिजनेस करना चाह रहे हैं, एक ब्रांच खोलनी है आपको। ये अब ऑप्शंस अवेलेबल हैं डिफरेंट कंट्रीज़ के थ्रू, कि आप चाहें तो माइग्रेट करें, चाहे सिर्फ पासपोर्ट ले लें या बिजनेस खोलना चाहें। सो based on this, I will now turn towards the audience and have any questions answered. Anas, if you're there, please help us with the audience.
You hear me? Do you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we do.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we
So
hear you.
I will see if we have any questions. Sure.
Well, while we're waiting for the question, there's a point I wanted to raise is that I think people, when they want to look at these programs, citizenship by investment or residency by investment or citizenship or migration, they have to create a matrix as to their needs and what do they really want and consider
Yeah.
different things: the lifestyle, taxation, doing business, and of course, the hardship of leaving the country. And most important is that the family, the generation, the multi generational planning as to what's going to happen with the parents, the older children. So these are important factors to consider. Where, for example, citizenship by investment allows you to include your parents, your unmarried brothers and sisters, your older children, and then, of course, all your family size. But then, when if you look at, for example, UK is just you, your spouse, and children under 18. What do you do with your children who are above 18? If you have, daughters of 24, 22 years old, they can't stay back. How do you bring them? So it is important to create a matrix and to look into your needs, your desires, or aspiration, and see which programs answers better these needs that you have. Go ahead.
You're absolutely right.
So,
The question.
are you ready for the question,
Yeah,
please?
Yeah, sure.
it's from Mona. Okay, so I want you to expand on the E2 visa
I
and
can't hear the question.
Can,
hear me? Hello?
yes.
Yeah, so I want you to expand on the E2 visa and would it help if I already had a company registered in USA and it's actively been trading for the last 1.5 years? So would that help my case?
Is your company that you currently have, is that a US company?
Yeah, it's a US company registered in Texas as a LLC.
Okay, just one word of warning. Be a little careful doing business in the US without the proper visa because they are cracking down on that big time. It definitely is good that you do have a business already there. Um, these are difficult questions to answer with just a little bit of knowledge. The problem is there's not a lot of good sources of information currently out there around the world, and there's a lot of bad information. So, good advice from the very outset is very important, including how you initially put your money into your company. If you want to count that as an E2, or you want to count that towards an E2, we have to look at all the money that you put in, unless we can't count that and we have to start afresh. Can I ask how many employees you have, if any?
No, no employees for now. We're working mostly from Pakistan. It's an online company, and we mostly do Amazon business on Amazon.
Okay. Well, it's very, you don't, there's no mandatory employment in the 10 employees like there is for EB5, but E2 is also looking for employees. If you don't have any employees at all, you're not going to get the renewal of your E2. You may get the initial one for 2 years or 5 years, but you won't get a renewal.
Okay, so E2 requires employee requirement. As an
There is
employee,
an employee requirement, yes. That's a mark of being successful. And the amount of money that you put in. I did notice there was a question earlier, Iram. I don't know if you or Shanez, if you want to just put that up.
The question was, is there an amount for
No, there is no minimum amount for E2. There's no maximum amount. It is solely dependent on the size of the business. However, saying that, you have to look at today's day and age. If you're going to try and start a business at 45, 35 kind of thousand, you're not going to get that through the consulate, who are going to look and see if this business is enough to not only run the business, but also manage your day-to-day expenses for you and your family. So we actually like an investment no less than at least 100, 150, if not more. And if, for example, you're buying a hotel, which is maybe 500,000, then it would be a higher investment. It all depends on the business.
But I think what people are losing in the site is the logic. I mean, if you
Yeah.
are in the U.S., you have a business, but the minimum requirement would be that the income from this business, the net profit, would allow a person to live normally. So if you assume a normal income of a family is around 40, 50,000, I guess if the business is not clearing 40, $50,000 a year,
Yeah.
then the question is, how are you going to live? Because you
Yeah,
can't
that's
tell them
exactly it.
I'm not going to live in the US. I'm going to live abroad. I have income abroad, and I don't need any income in the US. The idea of the E2 is the person also moving technically, no?
Yeah, that's true. You want to do business, but no, we have a lot of clients, Sam, who do business and they hardly come to the US. They use the E2 only for their business purposes.
No, no, no. I know that. But I mean, when you want to look at the law, you have to look at the legislator's intention. The
Yes.
intention with this law is, yes, I'm abroad. I want to come to your country, do business, and be here to run my business. Of course, they have the right to go back and forth and not to be there a lot. But when you look at things, you have to look at the perspective of the legislator. Their
Yeah.
intention is you're moving. Is the business going to allow generate enough income, net profit for you to live?
Exactly. And especially if you're going with the family, then you absolutely need to show that, because one of the biggest ways of getting this denied is to show that you don't have enough income to run.
Yeah. And I would like to add an important point over here for the people who listen. EB5 और E2 काफी complex areas हैं,
Mm.
and they're spread over time, especially EB5. There are a lot of consultants out there in the world जो आपको कहेंगे हम ये कर सकते हैं और शायद कर भी सकते हैं. But due to the complexity of this, there are lawyers who specialize in it. और जैसे मैंने शुरू में कहा था कि Mona is among the 25 EB5 lawyers, and she's been getting that award for the last 10-15 years. So ये बात I think समझना ज़रूरी है कि going through a lawyer or going through a consultant makes a huge difference. अगर एक सिंपल विजिट वीजा अप्लाई करना है तो कोई मसला नहीं है, लेकिन जब आप इस किस्म का वीजा अप्लाई कर रहे होते हैं, तो जो नॉलेज, जो एक्सेस लॉयर्स को है सिटिंग इन द यूएस, सिटिंग इन कनाडा, सिटिंग इन यूके, वो कंसल्टेंट्स को नहीं होती. इंक्लूडिंग राइटिंग टू द कॉन्सुलेट, राइटिंग टू द एम्बेसी. अगर आपका इंटरव्यू नहीं आ रहा या इट्स बीइंग डिलेड, lawyers can do that. Consultants are not able to do that. So ये एक important differentiation है, which I would, I wanted people to understand this. Questions, Anas?
I'm asking about the E2 visa. Is a 100% ownership or 50% ownership?
50% ownership. You have to have 50%. You can have two people coming in together with 50-50, but you have to have 50% ownership.
The second thing is, I'm talking about the Schengen. Which country is better for the business and easily for move to Pakistan?
You mean in Europe?
Yeah,
Mona,
I'm
before
talking about Europe. Yeah.
before we go to this question,
Yeah.
one question related to what you guys just spoke about. So, someone is asking that if the application is denied, what are the appeal procedures or the processes to make an appeal
Oh, for which application?
for the US visas?
Any category.
Any category, or let's discuss about the E2. I mean, because that's the most popular here among
Well,
the Pakistani investors.
right. E2, was that particular visa filed at the consulate or within the United States? That makes a difference.
Maybe you can comment on both.
Okay. If visas which are denied from the consulate are very difficult to appeal, there really isn't an appeal. What we do is a motion to reconsider. We can challenge it if we really feel that the consulate is wrong, but consulates really do have a wide berth. In the United States, there are more, if you do things within the United States, there are a lot more avenues, but you have to be present at the time that you file within the US. A lot of times, though, we can challenge the State Department as well from the US. That's a little more costly if we're doing it. And there is also a 30-day period. So if you get a denial, you have to appeal or do a motion to reconsider within 30 days of the denial. But it doesn't preclude you from refiling. And if you refile and you've had previous denials, that's okay, as long as you can justify what is different or why you think the consulate was wrong. So if you, for example, got denied a year ago and you didn't bother doing anything about it, you appeal wouldn't be your option now. A refile would be an option, a better option.
Here, I like to put one little point here to everyone regarding general is that yes, for example, in the case you're mentioning, Mona, it's good to be in the US when you apply for this because you have recourses for appeal. But there, one of the reasons I see sometime for refusals, for example, in Canada or any other program, is an inconsistency in the information
Yes.
in the client's applications, where when they applied for the visit visa, they were very, very casual about giving the information about who they are. For
Mm,
example, if they have three companies, they just mentioned one, and then suddenly, when it comes to more a residency application, now they take it more serious, and now they go mention they have three companies. Like
yeah.
yesterday, I was revising a visa, Canada visa refusal. They asked me what they can do. I said, well, we can appeal, but let me study your file. And then the lady had mentioned that she wants to go back to her country because she wants to take care of her only son. But
Mm,
then looking at the at her birth certificate and a form called family composition form, she's mentioning she has two sons.
that's
So,
right.
in her visa request saying, I want to go back to my country to take care of my only son, then you just wonder, wait a minute, didn't you just said you had one son, but in your documents you have two? Talking with her, she mentioned where her second son has passed away, but that is not clarified in her visa request. So it's the same thing here. The person might will be applying from Pakistan, uh, very casually giving the information, and of course obtaining the visa. They go, and then when it's time to apply for the EB5 or E2 or one of the EB visas, then now things are becoming more sophisticated, difficult because they haven't been very open and truthful. So it's
Right.
nice to plan these things right from the beginning.
Right. Absolutely. No,
And that
agreed.
and sorry, that goes to the initial question Imran was asking, the difference between lawyers and consultants in general, because of their lack of knowledge, they have a very short vision of the process. We tend to see things more in a wider perspective, long-term planning of various applications. Sorry.
Absolutely. And a good example of that is if you come in on an E2 with an idea that eventually you may do, you want to become a permanent resident, we would have to convert that E2 to EB5. We have to plan that from the very beginning. We can't plan that halfway.
So that answers further your question about the difference between consultants and lawyers.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Ines?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So we have one. I have a couple of questions actually. Hand over the mic.
Hi, I want to ask you about some, it's a little bit personal, but it's important that you answer because this will guide me a lot. So I used to be married in America, but the marriage didn't last. I came back like around 3 years or something. And then next year, obviously, when you have a green card, you have to go every year. I couldn't go. So when I had to hand over the green card to the embassy. Now I have remarried. It's been 15 years. My another husband is doing courses from IDEO University in America online, and he's really intrigued and he would like to visit over there. So when we apply for any visa in USA for visiting or for through business or whatever, do I have to go through all of my travel history as well? And
Yes,
will it increase
absolutely.
his chances? Like, will it affect him? Because that's my concern. Like, I don't want my history to be affecting him, you know?
Well, technically, he's an individual, but unfortunately, I mean, if he is married to you, your history will affect his history. And yes, everything comes up. But that doesn't mean to say that this is a negative issue. At the end of the day, this is positive that you did what you had to do and you returned your green card. You haven't tried to go back since then? You haven't had any other issue?
No, no.
Yeah.
I actually, I don't even live in Pakistan. I live in Turkish Republic of North Cyprus. So I've been living there for like 10 years now.
Okay.
We come here because we have family in Pakistan. So
Okay.
we have a lot of remote businesses, you know. There was one question about somebody asked you if they have an LLC in USA. So like this, there are a lot of people who are working on with Amazon, FBA, and stuff like that, and they make an LLC in USA, and they're handling their business remotely from anywhere in the world. So if we have a lot of them, but we are not working in USA right now. We have not done anything. Just my husband would like to visit Haidu University because he's really intrigued, and he has done a lot of courses from there. He was also teaching over there. He's
Yeah, I
into
mean, it comes up in your form, it comes up in the history. They do look at it, but it shouldn't make a difference.
it
It
should
shouldn't.
not.
It shouldn't make any difference to his petition.
Okay, that's a relief. Thank you.
And as your camera can't come on, it would be nice to see people.
I will try to manage that. Do we have any more questions? Not at the moment. You guys can continue.
Well, we are available if you want to have, I mean, not everybody wants to give their question out in public. So if you want to speak to us one-on-one, we are available. But I think we're close to wrapping up.
All right, lovely. Mona Shah and Associates Global का बूथ जहाँ अपने वहाँ मौजूद है, बायत लॉ फर्म का बूथ भी मौजूद है जहाँ पे ब्रोशर्स मौजूद है. प्लीज यू कैन टेक अ ब्रोशर. उसमें हमारी कॉन्टैक्ट इंफॉर्मेशन है, ईमेल है. प्लीज फील फ्री टू कॉन्टैक्ट एनी टाइम एंड वी कैन सेट अप अ मीटिंग जो टाइम सबके लिए मुनासिब होगा. एंड वी लुक फॉरवर्ड.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Iram, but there is a question which came up, which I think you missed. It was from, is it Sahrul? Shanias, can you put the question up, please? You want to read it, Iram?
Yeah, it says, thank you for your interesting discussion. As you mentioned, loan shall not be considered as an investment for EP5. That's not true.
No, that's not what he said. Yes, exactly. Sorry, put the question back. Shanias, yeah.
Can parents or other relatives gift the money for the EB5 investment?
Okay, that I don't want to confuse you. Loan cannot be, is not considered in the Caribbean. That's perhaps, Sam, you can repeat that again. For EB5, loan can be, loan is part, and often it is part of your the investment that you're putting in. And yes, you can have gifts and you can have loans from family, from friends, from absolutely anybody, as long as we are able to source the where the gift and the loan money came from. It really doesn't matter where in the world it comes from, as long as we can source it.
In the Caribbean, people can gift you the money, and if a third party can pay the money on your behalf. Okay, even in Canada, you can have a gift, but it must be unrevocable. You know, you should not be obliged to pay it back as a true gift. So if someone's giving money to you to apply for your program in Canada, that's okay, but it must be done 6 months before you apply.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of question on the comment site, from the public.
Well, we've got a couple of more questions as well.
So another question is, how can I get Romanian permit residence through study visa?
Sam, I'm not an expert in Romanian.
Well, yes, it is possible. If you're accepted, if you're accepted in Romania, you can apply and get the Romanian residency, and that's not very difficult. But there are other questions, I think.
Another question. Once you get E2 visa from within the US, can you travel outside US and come and enter back, I guess, come back to the US?
That's a good question, because the E2 is connected very directly with the consulate. So no, if you get the E2, if you are approved for the E2 in the US, you have to put another petition to the consulate before you can travel. It's the same as traveling on a H1 visa or a student visa. You still have to go through the consulate. But if you've been approved within the US, chances are super high that you won't have any issues at the consulate.
I want to get the golden visa for Portugal. However, my bank statement go 20 years back and it's hard to create a trail of the funds.
Well, definitively in Portugal, the
Sorry to
investment.
interrupt. I'll just add on top of this question. So someone is also asking the same thing that if you're going for E2 or E5, money is not an issue, but what about the money trail and the source of funds?
We
Well,
when
sorry. Well, I think the common practice today in the industry is, again, unfortunately, particularly with consultants, they're advising people just to top off the bank account by a large sum. uh, that needs to be justified. Where did you get this much
Mhm.
money in your account? Now, if it's in the short term, where yesterday I had, well, 2 days ago I had $10,000 in my bank account, and now suddenly yesterday it went up to $1 million. So, well, you have to be able to justify where that money came from. And it goes the same thing if you if you produce a bank statement of a year or 2 year or 5 year or 10. You need to be able to quantify every peaks as to what happened, what was this sum, who paid that to you, and how were you able to acquire that much money. So
yeah,
it's always the same clarification of the information and your situation in the application, regardless visitor visa, student visa, or residency, permanent residency. Mona?
So I
yeah.
just
So I just want, Iram, if I could just answer that question.
yeah.
For the source of funds issues, I can tell you we've done over 2,000 petitions in EB5, which are often very difficult, and many, many, many in E2 as well. Um, the it Even if you think it's difficult, come and speak to a professional, because we'll find a way around it. Not everybody has straightforward money. Even if you have absolutely clean money, there are issues, and it is often better, especially for the American program, to get, well, there are alternatives, let me put it that way.
There's a nice question about the future of the golden visas in Europe. I think that's a nice question, which I'd like to answer. Well, currently, if we look at Portugal and Spain, I mean, Spain as being the golden program for all the European Schengen zone, they are going to move out of this type of visa.
Mhm.
Portugal's, they also had some changes where you can no longer show buying a property to get the visa. In my opinion, the European um, countries are going to pull back a little more, although Hungary is going to restart their program. The view with the European Parliament is that people should not buy citizenship or residency in a passive way. They want people to come and live and engage. So
Right.
that the general mood is they don't like it. But long term, I think in the next year, 2, 3 years, I don't think there's going to be major changes. But beyond that, I think yes, it's going to be far more difficult to acquire these residencies in Schengen without actually going. Caribbean, no, they really need the money. They're going to do a better way. They're gonna find better ways to select the applicants, genuine applicants, and they just increase the price. That's one filter, and the Caribbean programs are going to continue.
Yeah, and I think also the same goes for the UK as well, and in America, that they do actually want you to be here a little bit more. So I think these passive investments are going to go out.
It's going to become more difficult. I mean, for example, in Canada, the only passive way to get into this country, to Canada, is the Quebec Investor Program.
Mm.
Where it is simply the fact that you have put 1.2 million with the Quebec government for 5 years at zero interest. That's going to get you in. Of course, there's a little condition about your language and at least having high school. The French language is conversation, so you can manage that. You can learn and you can come in. That's the only way you can come to Canada in a passive way. Of course, a lot of people are trying to sell other programs as a passive, like the startup program has been very much abused and being sold as a passive way, which that's why the government nearly canceled the program and limits the number of applications now.
Yeah, there is a no language requirement for the US, by the way there is for Canada.
There's a question here. Which is the best option uh, for applying E2 visa from Pakistan, or going on a visit visa and converting it into E2? So I guess the question is, whether it's easier, better to come to the US and then apply, or do it from Pakistan or the home
Well,
country?
I kind of have answered this question already, but I will say that it really depends on the business. And even if you apply from the US, we still have to you have to apply from the consulate if you want to travel.
Um, there's one more question for you guys.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this conversation. I've been really enjoying it here for quite a few hours, and I was looking forward to actually speaking with you. So I just want to take this opportunity to ask you something about my own self. So, what are the options that I do have? High level, of course. I don't want to just deep dive into it, but understand high level that what options do I have to convert my visit visa into an immigration process? So, I have my maternal side in the US. Will they be able to sponsor me and I'm able to get the immigration, or what other best options do I have? So I'm in my mid 30s, working for good organizations in Pakistan, and did my MBA lately with an HR. So that's just my background. If you can help that, please.
Well, I can tell you it's very difficult to get a sponsor in the US unless you have one beforehand. And if you have, for example, if you're trying to go there on a work visa, you need to get an H-1B visa first, which is a non-immigrant visa. The immigrant visas and the non-immigrant visas go side by side. And there's such a demand for an H-1B visa. On average, there are about 280 to 300,000 people who apply for 65,000 spaces for an H-1. So you cannot just go there and see if somebody can sponsor you. It really doesn't work like that. Very honestly, as a Pakistani, it's much easier to come in on an E2 if you want to come in than on any other visa. The other option, which is quite popular, is an L1. An L1 is an intra-company transfer for where you have an office in Pakistan and you're opening a sister branch or an affiliate in the US. You have to make sure that the one in the branch in Pakistan continues and you're paying taxes. This particular option is heavily scrutinized as well because this is an option which is worldwide. So a lot of Indians and other countries use this. If you want to come and you want to do something like EB5, yes, you can come in and you can invest in EB5 and you can stay and you can transfer from the B1, B2 to the EB5 concurrent filing. But if you're coming just to look for a job to being sponsored, you're not going to get it so easily.
And what about the relatives? Any of my maternal relatives can sponsor me in that case?
Are you over 21?
Sorry?
Are you over 21?
Yes, that's right.
When you're over 21, it's much, much longer because you'll move down the preference category. If, for example, a sibling sponsors you, it's about 15 years right now, wait period. If you're a US citizen parent, I believe it's 7 to 9 years. If you get married, it's immediate. Or if a child of yours is a US citizen and sponsor you, it's immediate. I hope that answers your questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate
And please feel free to approach us. We can, we regularly are in Dubai. We are, we can have a conversation with you either over Zoom or meet you in person. Yeah, please feel free to contact us.
Definitely.
And Hamza is in Pakistan. Hamza is in Karachi, so he
Right.
lives there. So he's a good link.
Yeah, so the people here are basically asking that if you have any representatives here in Pakistan, or maybe you can refer them to someone so they can meet them physically, and then obviously get in contact with you guys through Zoom or something as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes,
I think Hamza could answer your questions. He's there, and there's also people from the Dubai office. Mary and Pej Mohiddin are there. Well, that's been quite interesting. A lot of interesting questions.
So there's one more inquiry about the inheritance, specifically for the Caribbean. So someone is saying that, for example, if I have a Dominican passport
would my future children inherit the same?
Yes, of course. This happens quite often when you acquire, for example, Dominica, when you have children in the future, well, after you obtain your citizenship, if you have children, you can apply for your children to get the citizenship. The fees were initially very little, and then they increased to 10,000 to add them, but now they're reduced again. So it doesn't cost too much and it doesn't take too much time for you to add your children and obtain the citizenship for them as well. So it's really
Right.
interesting. It's really multi generational in the phase where you obtain the citizenship and also after, because you can add your parents, your spouse, or future children to the original application.
Right. And also, Salman here with us in the audience today is very keen to know that is there a particular way that I mean we've already discussed that E2 does not lead to a green card. It's a business visa, but is there any way that an E2 can be converted to an EB5 later down the years?
Yes, 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 it can be. Not even later. People do that all the time. It's called, well, we refer it as E2 to EB5. And at some point, you will have to invest 800,000, which is the minimum amount, or if not more, and create 10 full-time employees. The path of funds and the source of funds and how the business is run and the corporate structure are kind of complicated, and that's something that we need to arrange, or we need to structure from the very outset. If you already have a business, we do a lot of cases whereby somebody has a business and we've had to make adaptations. It is easy if you do it from the beginning, but yes, to answer your question, it certainly is very, very possible, and it's done quite regularly.
I'd like to come back to the question about Dominica.
Mm.
Uh, since the beginning, I've been of this conference, I've been mentioning that you need to foresee the future, plan, make sure the information is consistent. In the future, when you want to add your newborn child to your old citizenship and obtain the citizenship for your child, for example, you got your citizenship in 2020 and in 2025, you have a new child, you want to add them, that's very easy. What I would recommend, and you got to pay attention, is that they will compare the new information that you're providing in 2025 with the information that you provided in 2020 when you get
Right,
your
right.
originally your citizenship, and you got to make sure you're consistent. So that is where problems happen. And now, particularly with the recent problems that they were in the Caribbean regarding discounting, people paying different prices. I was there in Dominica last week, and I was told that there will be they will question you in the future about how your application was processed, who applied for you, were there designated agent, service provider, and particularly the following question: how much did you pay? Prove to us how much did you pay. And if you paid less than the investment that was prescribed in the law, for example, if you applied as a single, you should have paid 100 and you paid less, that's going to be problematic because you clearly are showing that you broke the law. The law was 100,000 because discounting financing has never been approved by the law. So it is important that you verify the information that was provided in the past, have a copy, and realize what you have said. That's crucial. And the payments are going to be a big issue in the future, very big issue.
Right. I think those were all the questions that the audience had.
Well, thank you very much. Very attentive audience.
Thank you very much. It was lovely meeting all of you.
Apologies that we are not there at this time.
Okay. Well, we wish you a good
All
day
right.
and Allah Hafiz.
Pleasure.
Good day and Allah Hafiz.